The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions, and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
I can hear her heartbeat from 1,000 miles. Hear the heavens open every time she smiles. And when I come to her, that's where I belong. Yet I run into her like a river song. She gave me love, 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 love. She gave me love, 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 crazy.
Hello.
Hey, Miss Sydney. Welcome to Cosmopolitans with Lauren. How are you?
Thank you.
How are you, gorgeous?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Okay, well, anybody that's listened to me on my show, which has gotten really big, knows that I love Sydney because Sydney is a paranormal author. And my best friend is here, and she's crawling out of her skin because she wants to interview you, but I'm going to have to ask you all the questions that she can't ask you. But Sydney, hello, honey. And I have to tell you something really quick before we even get started on your array of books going on. How are you first?
Oh, I'm doing good. Doing good.
Okay. Well, I did that thing that we talked about. I told Sydney I was having really bad luck. I said, I'm having bad luck, bad karma, and, you know, we've done this, that, and the other, and she gave me this crazy things, because, guys, if you listen to me and you read my blogs, you know that I'm, like, into the Native American stuff and the saging the houses and all that crazy stuff, but she gave me this thing to do, but we did an interview with Sydney before Halloween because of the, it was Halloween. Woo! We were doing Ghost. But Sydney, tell me how your book is doing because I love your website and I want you to tell me about the books that you're promoting for the holidays.
Okay. Probably the book that I'm most promoting for the holidays is the one that came out in August, which is See No Evil. It's based on a modern-day prophet that lived during the 20th century from Mississippi. And he was a very fascinating individual. And then I have a narrative, a haunted historical narrative that came out in October, the last part of October. It's only been out just about 2 or 3 weeks. But it is a haunted history series, and it starts off a haunted history series. There'll be several volumes in that. And I may even venture over into Alabama.
Are you going to Alabama?
Yeah.
Okay, well then we're going to hang out, right?
We are definitely going to hang out because I have been told actually that that I needed to go to Birmingham and that there were some really interesting haunted history stories there. So definitely have that on the to-do list. So don't be surprised if I don't hit you up.
Yeah, because you have to go. You have to go to Sloss. Like my girlfriend's sitting here, she's like wide-eyed, bushy-tailed. She's like, I want to do the haunted stuff, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. But yeah, Sloss Furnace is like huge. But we joke about that, guys. And I want to tell you something. And people that are listening out there, and you're going to read Sydney's books. And I know I've posted up several of her websites talking about her holiday books for the season, which are crazy, incredibly good. And I read all of them in like 3 days because they're so good. But you that are listening, that are into the paranormal, you're either going to shut me off right now or you're going to listen to me. And I'm hoping that you listen to me. But when you're reading these things and you get involved in these books and get involved in all these paranormal radio shows, it can become healthy for you, but it also can become negative for you. And at what point do we say that we're going to delve into a hobby that's interesting, that we enjoy, to a part that is negative and unhealthy for us?
Well, I definitely think that if you are interested in the paranormal, you've got lots of questions. Most of the time, people, when they get interested in the paranormal, they are skeptics, or they're right there on that fine line of do I believe, or what do I believe actually. So they're looking for answers. They're searching for proof. Now, when I was a young child, when I was 8 years old, I had my first paranormal experience, and over a lifetime of experiences and much research that I have done, I'm to the point now where I no longer need that validation. So I'm okay with that. As far as how much is too much, I will tell you that as far as reading this and studying it and to satisfy your curiosity, that's fine. But there are spirits that are not so nice, and there is a dark side.
A dark side.
I don't encourage people to dwell off into this all the time. I mean, it can become
an obsession.
Yes, it can become an obsession. It can come too consuming, and it's not healthy. It's not healthy for your psyche. But now there's things that you can do, like what I had advised you of doing, just some cleansing things that you can do for yourself. And I practice those things myself, and practice what they call a clearing, where you clear your mind.
Right, and I would say that too, because you and I spoke right before Halloween, and we had gone on some kind of like crazy paranormal thing, and you and I had talked about attachments, about going to different places, and I was like, I've already had enough negative stuff in my life, and I actually was contacted to do a major paranormal documentary 2 weeks ago, but I chose not to because we had already delved into going and setting up at a ghost house, and I had seen bad experiences, and people think that it's going to be like Scooby-Doo, where you're going to go in there and bump into the green Frankenstein that's going to go boo, and Scrappy's going to pull your mask off, and that's going to be what it is. But truly, it's not like that. If you believe in the paranormal, which I do, but if you believe in the paranormal, you're not going to get the Scooby-Doo world. You're getting into things that can be bad, that can follow you back home, that can mess up your head. And I've read so many of your books, and I've enjoyed them so much, and no wonder you're a number one best author, because you're amazing. But I feel like you had to probably go through that journey to figure out that, because I know you had a near-death experience I read about, and that kind of logged you into the paranormal sphere. But last time we spoke, you were trying to pull back from that because you had been, so engulfed in it that you were becoming...
Well,
what?
I will say that as far as ghost hunting, I think that I had alluded to that whenever you and I had spoken last. I don't go ghost hunting as much as I did, when I was younger, and and I would get together with lots of friends, and we would go and check out places, because like you said, sometimes, things that you come across are always they're not always nice and friendly, and you certainly don't want to have an attachment that stays with you for years and years that you have no idea how to get rid of. And so, now at this stage in my research, this is a lot of fun to me when I go and research a place and I'm looking for answers, or I'm looking at an event that happened at a particular location that someone says is definitely haunted, or maybe it's an unsolved murder, as in The Haunting of Natalie Bradford, which was my first debut novel. The Haunting of Natalie Bradford has got a lot of things going on. There's an unsolved murder, and of course I know what happened to her, but
You do know what happened to her.
There's a ghost story within it, and a murder trial. So there's a lot going on there. But a lot of times when you investigate a location and you find out who lived there, what happened, there's your reason for the haunting. And so that's kind of where I am, and it doesn't take me but just a few minutes to make up my mind. It's an accumulation of, let's say, talents or sensitivities that I have acquired over many, many years of being exposed to the paranormal. So it takes me just a few minutes.
Do you think that you're
for me to pick up on that.
Do you think that you're born as sensitive, or do you think that that's? I
do think that some people are born a little more gifted than others, but there are ways that you can develop those talents.
Yeah, and I don't know who would want to develop them. We're going to tell the story because I think, okay, guys, we know that Lauren has jumped from radio station to radio station, but we've gone up every time that we've jumped. We've gone global now. But we talked about on our last radio show with Sydney. We've done a couple of tapings. But we had talked about me personally, the journey that I went through the paranormal. And we talked about when Courtney Cox and I were living in Los Angeles, and we pulled up. She was wanting to buy a bigger house, and it was great. And we pulled up. We looked at a bunch of houses, and we pulled up to this one crazy house. And I looked at it, and I was like, "Oh, that's haunted." And she was like, "You're crazy. You're crazy." And then the real estate agent came back out, and he said, "Oh, well, by the way, before I show you the house, legally we have to tell you this house is haunted." Which was in the contract. Crazy, right? So she ended up getting the house, and it was haunted. People, you can give me hate mail tomorrow, but it was haunted.
Wow.
But there is like a deal where, you've got these people that are like, they're going to do chemistry and they're going to do math, and they're not open to other worlds and other things. And then you have these people that go a little overboard and grabbing a Ouija board or trying to drink blood. I mean, the world is crazy. So for us, they're looking at you as a best-selling paranormal expert author. You need to guide us into the realms of what, if we're interested in it, what do we do? If we're interested, but we don't want our kids to go overboard with it, what should they do?
Well, if you want to just start out having a little bit of fun, if you want to take even your telephone, even your phone, your cell phone that has a recorder on it, you can start out without investing into a lot of expensive equipment. Take your phone that has a camera on it. Do this at night, because the orbs, which are supposedly balls of energy. Or spirits that are, float through the air. And you sometimes can pick those up on your camera, but other times it can also be dust particles and different things. I've made some great pictures of orbs. So if you're just wanting somewhere to start, and you're just wanting to have a little fun with this as a hobby, if that's kind of what your question is asking me, where some kids might want to do this, I will tell you this: you need to be very careful where you go after dark, because it won't be safe. And cemeteries, and don't be very mindful that you are respectful and don't tear up anything intentionally or not at the cemeteries and things like that. But a cemetery is a great place to take pictures at night. But I don't know why you would think that the dead people spirits wouldn't still be there, but they are.
In saying that, like, my daughter, right before, moved back to Birmingham before my divorce, she was filming a movie at this hospital that had been condemned and all that other stuff. And you remember, my daughter's here. I'm like, remember? But she had the makeup artist, and the makeup artist came in, and she started doing her face, and she was like, I just don't feel comfortable here. I just need to sage it. I need to sage it. And I was like, why, if you died, would you hang around the hospital that you died in? Why don't you, and like we always watch these ghost adventures, because y'all know that, listen to me, and I blog about it all the time, ghost adventures. They go to like the prisons and the hospitals and the graveyard. Why is a spirit going to hang out there? I mean, why wouldn't you go to a place that you're happy, like go to the carnival or go to the fair? Why are you hanging out at a hospital or a prison if you're a spirit?
Well, part of the reason is maybe particularly at the time that they died, it leaves over a residual energy. At that time that they died there, that, they left with unfinished business. It was a horrific death, and so they have become stuck in that location. Those are the theories behind it. Certainly, we're not bound from everything that I have been taught over many, many years. You're not bound when you pass on. But there are certain locations that seem to still be haunted. Maybe they can't get past that. They can't get that settled within their soul. And so they're kind of stuck there. You think about places that are said to be haunted where a horrific murder happened, or a traffic accident, and you see the entity of the ghost there that shows up one night a year on the night of the horrific accident. It's called a residual haunting, and it's like a broken record. It's an imprint of that energy that stayed there at that moment.
But is that their spirit, or is that just the imprint left there?
I think probably that it is an imprint that is left there. That's why they call it a residual haunting. But there are such things as intelligent hauntings, where actually, the ghost is actually able to communicate with you.
Yeah, that's not. I always feel like that's not great.
Oh, yes. Or definitely tries to. And there are a lot of those around, even in the area where I live, and in the South, for that matter, in Alabama, where you are. Because, the South was the site of a major war. And so, as I've always been taught, where the land has been sold by the blood of many and not cleared, it tends to have that curse upon the land. I've always heard that.
And you always hear that, and don't throw me any shade, people. I don't want to hear anything. I do not want to get a text tomorrow or an email or anything from y'all. But the Native Americans, boy, if you mess in their land, they're going to rip your ass the next generation. So, I mean, if I was going to build a house, I'd like to have them dig up to make sure that I didn't disturb any kind of ceremonial Indian area. Don't you find that the Indian spiritual aspect is really relevant into a lot of hauntings in the South and the Midwest?
Well, in those areas where they actually lived, I would say yes. I live on what was once a Native American, the site of a Native American village, and so this area, and so it's very intriguing to me. And it was the home of the Chickasaw Nation. And there has been some strange things that have happened here. I'm kind of like right in the middle. It's very interesting, but I have found out that my house is actually located just within a very small vicinity of where the huts were located. So it's very intriguing. The only thing about that is the Chickasaw buried their dead under the floor.
That's what I was going to say.
Of their home.
Yeah, it sucks for you. I'm sorry. Like if you said, Lauren, you need to build a house, I'd dig the area up, make sure there was no tribal situation going on, and if I couldn't find it, then I'd just go out the ocean. Just because I think that, guys, I'm part Indian, so if you throw me shade tonight or tomorrow, I'm okay with that, because my great-grandfather was Indian, so I really just don't care, because I know what he told me. And the fact of the matter is that you have to respect in life. I would say this with anybody, especially with all the religious, I don't get caught up in the political aspects of all that, because y'all try and draw me in, and I'm not going to get drawn in. But you have to respect everybody's view of stuff. Even if you don't understand it, you have to respect it, because even if you ignore it and act like it's not happening, it's still happening. It may affect you. So you may not understand curses or religious acts, or, maybe you shouldn't build a house on top of a cemetery kind of situation. But you have to respect everybody's religion and be open to your environment around you.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Tell us some things that you've experienced on your land, being that.
Well, on this land, since I have lived in this house since about 2010, I think, I have had. I thought for a while there that it must be me. I mean, it must be me that is haunted, because I tend to find these situations too often. It's not here as much, but when I first moved in, there was a lot of activity, which was, and you can't dispel it to, the house settling. That's just not possible. I have seen an apparition since I've been living here, and that was very alarming. And I have seen some other questionable type things that I thought could be apparitions. So those things have happened, but I have burned a lot of sage. So I feel fine now. I feel like whatever it is, it was very settled. And in fact, at one time I did have a little talk, with whatever this was, this presence, and kind of said, let's make a deal.
Do you feel like you pulled it in from one of your investigations, or do you feel like it's because you live where you live?
No, I don't think I pulled it in from any investigation, because at the time I wasn't really doing any investigations when I moved here. I just think that I moved into, an area that had some activity, and I wasn't aware of it at the time. I had no idea what the land. I thought that the land had originally. The only thing that I knew about this area is that it was a part of the battlefield during the Civil War Battle of Tupelo, Mississippi. I knew that this was, and there were 14,000 troops, Union soldiers, that marched in from the west. The east, and so. But that's as far as I knew until later on, after I had been here for a little while and had started to encounter some of this. I visited with some local historians and some of the Mississippi historians, and they informed me that this actually was the site of a Native American village. In fact, two different groups of Native Americans had lived here at two different time periods, and the land that was directly located behind my house was the site where some graves were found. So, so it all made sense. But everything is good now, and I'm happy.
Let me ask you something. So, do you feel like, do you try and take a step back? I know with you and I, we talked about, we believe to kind of in curses or bad luck and all this other stuff, and we talked about some ways to get rid of that. Do you sometimes, I would think in your business, in your line of work, when you're engulfed in that kind of paranormal, or writing about, like you said before, the death, the murders, trials, etc., that can take you, which I have written about that, it takes you into a deep, dark place. Do you feel like you have to cut off eventually? Do you have to try and cut off the paranormal for a while, and then you're like, okay, I'm ready to go back in? Or is that just part of your life forever?
Well, when I'm working on a new book project, definitely, that is correct. Especially if there was a lot of, like in The Haunting of Natalie Bradford, where this was a murder / love mystery and ghost haunting type of thing with a murder trial. I mean, that it was really deep. That project was it was very intense, and there were times whenever I would be working on that I did not feel alone. It was a little bit unnerving, the writing of that. Sometimes I would even have to stop. I would have to, when I was recreating those scenes, that book is written about 90% word for word as that happened. The entire story. The Haunting of Natalie Bradford Part 1. Very little of that has been left, to me as using the creative license to change anything around. So it's very authentic, that story is. And it was unnerving at times to write it. Because there was so many, there was more than one haunting, and you had people in the family that would be standing on the second floor at Lindenwood and would look across the banister there on the second floor rail of the stairs where it came up and went around the bedrooms there, and and they would witness seeing the ghost of Caroline Bradford standing in the doorway, and the door slamming shut. and everybody, and and these screams. And I mean, can you imagine living in that for 3 months? 3 months is all that they made it. They only made it in that house 3 months. But it was
I'd be out the third day.
Oh, it was crazy. It was absolute insanity. And, the guy had already murdered his first wife. And, and this Natalie Houston meets him and marries him. And she was his operating room nurse. Well, she had no idea that he was involved in any of that. But she was his operating room nurse, helped save his life, was in the OR room the night that he was brought in. And then 3 years later, she finds herself married to this man living in the same house where his dead wife, had been. It was that's the craziest story ever. I've always said that so needs to be on the big screen because
I'll read it for you. Let's go. Okay, all the producers out there that are listening, y'all just knock that off. Me and Sydney are going to go into writing a scary movie. Because I actually am approached. The people that approach me, and luckily I'm in a bit, I've gotten, okay, y'all. Don't give me crap on this. I'm not Steven Spielberg, but I do get called a lot to write different things. But when I got called this last time, they were like, family movies and scary movies. That's your genre. So we're going to have to put together a scary thing.
Well, I do have plans to work on the screenplay for The Haunting of Natalie Bradford this year. That is in the mix for, in the next month or two after the holidays to get started on that. I've always said it's got all of the right elements. It just needs to be in the right hands. And it's in Elvis Presley's hometown. So
I think that would be in my hands.
Yeah, that would be in your hands. Well, that may be something we should talk about because it definitely, I definitely am working on that. It's up for sale, and guess what? There's no agents involved. So how about that?
Do you hear me clipping? Listen.
That's right. There's no agents.
That's
I own
me and
all
you.
rights.
And you know what? That would be me and you because we have no agents involved. and maybe my producer just walked in and fell out on the floor, so now I'm going to tell him what that's about. Sydney, I love you to death. I think that you're crazy, crazy talented. And like I said, she tried to send me one time. I was at school. Once again, I was teaching school, and she tried to send me something on an iNook or whatever. I'm not computer savvy. But I did get her books, and they're amazing. I read them in I think 3 days was the time lot because they're so good. And I'm so proud to call her my friend. She's an amazing author. She's an amazing person, and you get to know her. Like, we chit-chatted one night. I was really, really sad, and I was feeling kind of gross, and I called her, and we kind of chatted through the day and chatted through what she was going to do that night and the next day, and then she called and followed up call with me the next day, and we really developed a friendship. And so, once again, this is another Facebook friend where y'all laugh at me and say that you can't develop friendships on Facebook. I beg to differ. But
you can if you make plans to actually, touch base later. But yes, I mean, and you're just right, next door almost. Right.
But you do have these people, and that's kind of what we talk about, the paranormal. I'm very sensitive. I mean, I'm very sensitive. People that read my stories and stuff, like I've gone to areas when Courtney Cox and I lived in the house, I was sensitive. That's eventually why I moved out. And with Queen Mary, and I get a nauseous feeling when there's places that I go and I have to. So I'm very sensitive. But there's something about me. I don't know if it's you. Or other people feel this. There is a certain group. I have thousands and thousands of people that contact me, but there is like an instant connection that I feel with certain people, and you're one of those people. And people laugh at me like I'm like girl power. Yeah, I'm girl power, but there are those connections that I feel with people that are amazingly talented, that are somewhat struggling like myself, trying to rebuild their lives and trying to grasp this forge this path ahead of us that we're given. And you were one of those people. And I just admire your writing. And I want you to tell us where to go for the Christmas and the holiday season. Where do we need to go to find your books? And what if I had to say, Sydney, give me 2 minutes of your promoting yourself. Give me what that is.
Okay. You definitely can go to lsydneyfisher.com. That is my website. You can take a look at, the different books that I have. I've got some things on there that that are for the holiday season. All of the books are printed and shipped from Charleston, South Carolina. The print editions, the digital editions are available on Amazon.com, Kobo, and Barnes & Noble on Nook. To tell you a little bit about me, it's kind of like my tagline at the top of my screen when you sign in to lsydneyfisher.com. It says there, I first witnessed the paranormal at the tender age of 8. And this experience opened a doorway to a world full of mysteries and miraculous, inspirations and things that has spanned a lifetime. I tell people to join me as I explore this one book at a time, and that's kind of what I've been doing. I've been writing since I was around that time. Started publishing a little bit more in the last about 2 or 3 years, and but I have been a writer for many, many years. But every single thing that I explore, each project that I get involved in, there's an element of truth involved. I write paranormal thrillers and supernatural suspense. I don't just write ghost stories. I explore angelic encounters, other things that are unexplained mysteries, true crime, even some military history and military science. There is a book I've got out called The Phoenix Mission that's very intriguing. I'm working on setting up the sequel for that now.
Okay, Sydney, I'm like, my producer just walked in with a lead pipe and is about to hit me over the head.
Okay.
So, right. I'm going to post on y'all for Thanksgiving. I'm posting up Sydney's website so you can share some Christmas stories. And I want to tell you that, Sydney, I consider you a dear friend and you're an amazing author. And you send me anything you want me to post up on my website and I will. And it is Sydney Fisher, the paranormal author, best-selling. And I love you, honey. And kisses and loves all through the Thanksgiving time.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a great holiday.
You too, Angel. See you soon. Okay. Bye, guys. I want to say bye with Cosmopolitans with Lauren. Love y'all. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Bye.
I can hear her heartbeat from 1,000 miles. Hear the heavens open every time she smiles. And when I come to her, that's where I belong. Yet I run into her like a river song. She gave me love, 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 crazy love. She gave me love.